Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie. Today, we're talking all things fatherhood, faith, family, fatherhood, and single parenting. I know they are a rare breed, but they do exist among us. Our fathers play a very big role in our lives, how we love one another, who we're in the process of becoming, how we see the world, whether we're adventurous, whether we're shy. All of these things play a big part in the relationship that we build with our dads. Today, we're going to be talking to Carlos Scott of Envision Marketing. He'll be here to share with us not only his own journey about being a single father, but what it means to build community, relationships, and how we can communicate better to keep all of our lives moving forward in a positive direction. Hey, Carlos Scott.
Hello, Dr. Jacquie.
How are you? I'm so excited that you are here today. You know, many people know you and have seen you out at Essence Music Festival. You are a PR guru. You are working with so many stars and people in the industry. But there is a little bit of a side to you that people are not familiar with. So walk us through your journey with Envision Marketing, and then let's dive right into being a single parent father.
Wow, that's a loaded one.
I know, right?
Yes, most people recognize me from representing whether it's star athletes, politicians, even artists, just various different facets. And for the most part, I try to be in the background. But obviously, as a media crisis specialist, sometimes you'll see me doing national hits or even international hits, talking about trending topics and how to navigate through those murky opportunities and things of that nature. Of course, we love Essence Festival and, BET Awards, Grammys, and all those fun things. But for somebody like myself, that's work and it's not just play. And so, but I make it all come together. And like you said, on top of that, June the 12th will be 8 years that I've had my son with me, living full time. And that was a major, major, major lifestyle change because I was now the full-time custodial parent and at the same time trying to run this business and jumping in on planes and doing all that. And so, but yeah, it's been, people know me a lot from obviously, what you led in with as far as Envision, working with our celebrity clients, not-for-profit clients or whatever clients. But what they don't know is that some people do, is that I'm also juggling being a single father to my son, Isaiah. And so that's a reality TV show in itself.
So let's unpack that for a minute, Carlos, because you mentioned you weren't always the original custodial parent. So I guess at some point there's this conversation that needs to be had, and when that takes place, can you talk people through the conversation related to how did you become a single dad?
Yes. I've always been a presence. Pardon me, I'm getting over local. Been a presence in my son's life. I was involved with his PTA and would chaperone school trips and things of that nature when he lived with his mother. But probably around, I guess, 7 or 8, I told his mother, I planted to see it. I said, hey, at some point, no rush, but I would love for Isaiah to live with me full time. And, hey, I just think that, fathers, sons need their fathers at a certain period because we kind of can help them go over the threshold and teaching them about manhood, responsibility, and things of that nature. And so years went by, and then all of a sudden they moved actually to Kansas City. So while they were out in Missouri for those 2 years, my son went through this kind of coming out stage. He went from being this kind of shy, not saying much kid to now he was saying a lot. And his mother was having a hard time trying to deal with that. And so one day she texted me out of the blue and said, hey, did you still want Isaiah to live with you? And, I was like, yeah, that wasn't like a one-time good deal. I'm like, yeah. So we made a plan that after that school year, that was in April, that he was going to be coming to live with me. And so that June the 12th that year, he came. And it's the funniest thing because he came at like 5 a.m. and I had to literally get on the road at 6 a.m. to take him to where my mother was living at the time in Jacksonville. And she agreed to, to keep him. Ironically, while I went off to do some filming with my client, Chef Gennard, and then after that we had the S Festival. So I was, for the next 2 months, I was jam-packed and I was wondering, how am I going to do this? And my mom was like, well, just drop him off on me. And so thank God that I have a village. And we'll get more on that, but I have a village here in Atlanta and just friends. I got 2 sisters here now, I got cousins. So it takes a village to really be able to show up and provide for your child.
So how did you get ready, for Isaiah to come? I hear men say sometimes, man, I'd love for my son or my daughter to come and be with me for more than just on weekends. But then there are all of these other things. You're a professional. And so you've got other things going on. And I know we're going to talk about the village, but as a man, how do you prep your son for making that transition from his mom being the only voice that he hears to father sometimes putting the foot down saying, listen, boy, here's some things as a man you need to come to understand as you're growing.
Yes, exactly. And on top of that, my son has autism. So the first part of the preparation was I went through this really, really deep dive in trying to find a school for him. And what I unfortunately found out was that most of the schools in that part of Atlanta where I was living in, quote unquote, the SWATs, they just didn't have the resources. So, excuse me, I'm sorry. So what I had to do was move almost 40 miles north to where I now live in the Sandy Springs area, to a school that had all the resources. And it had great turnout from dealing with kids with special needs, but specifically with autism. And so that was a big sacrifice that I had to make because everything I do, or everything I did at the time, my church was in the SWATs, my bank, everything that I did. So, but as parents, that's part of the job, right? We have to make sacrifices for the betterment of our children. And sometimes that sacrifice is moving from what is comfortable to what is new.
I can respect that because when you talk about what is comfortable, what is new, and what's making sacrifices, we never hear this side of the story. It's oftentimes, mom is going to do this and she's going to relocate and, everybody's all up in arms, but she's doing it for the kids. But when the father does it, it's like, oh, they're trying to take my kid away from me while they're moving so far. How is it that narrative can be so polarizing to families?
I think because if you just look statistically, when you're talking about the makeup of families, whether it's divorce, breakup, or whatever, 9 times out of 10, the mother is like automatically made the custodial parent. And so therein lies, I think, is part of the issue, as opposed to just automatically giving it to one parent or the other. I think that the courts should, on the outset, look at, okay, what is the best scenario for the child, as opposed to just automatically assuming that he or she is going to be in a better place with the mother. And I'm not knocking mothers by any means when I say that. It's just that sometimes certain mothers, they lack those resources that are needed, and other maybe support systems, and just and in some cases, sometimes they even lack maternal instincts. So it's a lot to deal with. But for me, as a father, as a single father, stepping into that role, I just knew that I wanted to be the father to my son that I didn't have growing up. And granted, me and my father have a great relationship now. And matter of fact, he's a way better grandfather than he was a father. We laugh about that. But nonetheless, it's a preparation, and there's no handbook. I joke with both my mom and my mom and dad about, you know, I don't know how they did it, raising me as a single parent, whether I was living with my mom and dad or whether I was living with my mom. And it's like, wow, I have such deep respect and admiration for those sisters out there that have been doing it. And I just got one child, but there are women that have been raising, 3, 4, 5 children by themselves and never missed a beat, or seemingly, I'm sure they could tell you they missed a beat or two, but on the outside, it just looked like they're just handling it all. But as fathers, we kind of get automatically shoved into this role of just being providers or paying child support or whatever, but we're not really taken as serious as it becomes as you start having those conversations about being the custodial parent. And I'm just glad that his mother, I always give her proper respect. I give his mother kudos for her recognizing that it was time for him to come live with me, and that the world wasn't going to end just because he moved with me. It's just that we have a different parenting style. And obviously mine is a lot more disciplinary, but we have fun too. I mean, Isaiah I am so proud of the son, of just the person that he has blossomed into be. Special needs or not, I'm just proud of him. So.
I love that. And, when we come back, we're going to take a break because I think it's important to dive into that. When we come back after the break, I want to continue this conversation because, as Carlos has stated, his son does have special needs. And most of us have watched men walk away when their child isn't, as they would like to say, perfect. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
Let's go. Truth Talks is the fastest growing show about pop culture, and now we're exclusively on our own channel.
Go ahead, say it, man.
Attention! We're back.
We gotta stop letting this slide.
Bigger and stronger than ever.
I mean, I just have questions.
Season 2 is reloading May 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time.
What's up?
With new hosts.
Let me tell you what damn time it is.
And big celebrity surprises.
Kiss my behind. It's Oprah Winfrey.
Subscribe today at Truth Talks Live.
Give black people what they need, and we'll show it for you.
And don't miss out on all the upcoming viral moments.
Simulcasting weeknights at 8 p.m. on Roland Martin Unfiltered and Black Star Network and Truth Talks Live.
I'll see you there.
Welcome back, everybody, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, there's so much to talk about when we look at this idea of single fathers. Most women and communities believe that men can't do it. But Carlos Scott is a walking testimony of what it means to not only be present in his son's life, but to also give him the ability to thrive. Welcome back, Carlos. You were talking and mentioning about the lengths that you went through to find schools for Isaiah. And I'm almost at this point, want to call this segment Raising Isaiah, because I think there's a lot to be learned about something you said about looking at what it means to find the path for your son to grow, to be able to thrive. And oftentimes our boys and our girls are just tossed to the side when they aren't what society or what other people say our kids could be. But regardless of how they come to us, they're still a gift. Can you walk us through, for you as a father, and this may be a little personal, and I've never asked you this question before, of all the years we've known each other, what was it like as a father for you to discover your son was autistic? And what type of mode did that put you in to make him ready for the world?
To be honest, it didn't affect me as negatively or as hard as some people may on the outside look. Medical administration, running hospitals, and so I was educated about autism, in various ends of the spectrum from a work standpoint of view. So, being that I was already educated about people with autism and Asperger's and various ends of the spectrum, I knew that it wasn't quote unquote a death sentence, so to speak. I just knew that I had always been educated about it, just needing resources, love, support, system, and things of that nature. So I didn't take it as a woe is me moment or like, what am I going to do? It's like, matter of fact, I looked at it, I rolled up my sleeves and I said, hey,
Mhm.
whatever it takes, whatever it takes. Sorry about that. We're going to do it.
You don't have to apologize to me for one, exhibiting manhood. I believe that it takes strength, and I hope that these men are paying attention and watching and listening, because it takes strength of character to understand, accept, identify, prepare, learn, train, get ready to bring a child into this world, whether they come with special needs or they just come out however they come out, and so I applaud you, for being able to share with our audience, our men who watch us on a regular basis, that vulnerability and transparency is a part of fatherhood. And so,
Oh, yeah.
Talk to us about that. As a father, men are human and people too, and so we kind of discount that side of manhood, and people say, oh, that's weak, he crying, oh, it's weak, he got this kind of son, blah, blah, blah. That means absolutely nothing in God's plan for how you step up and show up for your boy.
Right. And that goes back to what I said earlier. I have him now, but the first 11 years of his life, he was with his mother. And I have to give her kudos because she's taught me so much. She was obviously his first biggest advocate. She taught me about patients' rights, and she was just on it as it related to finding the resources for him and just and what we should do together as we co-parented. And so, like I said, she taught me everything that I needed to know from a parent standpoint of view of what, once I took him on full time, hey, she kind of gave me, for lack of a better term, a script. Okay, these are the things that he's going to need. These are the things that you're going to have to do, whether it was a specialist, whether it was getting a speech pathologist, whether it was different testing and just various different things. And obviously, as it relates to his school, the IEPs and getting him prepared to basically go through that process and have his own IEP as an individual education plan. And that was probably the best thing from a preparation standpoint of view that she could have did for me, because she was so sharing of that information and always, on me about those things. When I did become the full-time custodial parent, that made that transition that much more easy, because I had this kind of roadmap, if you will, of things that she had kind of prepared me for.
Excellent. So you went from being a preteen father to a full-on teen, now young adult. Didn't Isaiah graduate from high school recently?
Yes, he graduated. He technically graduated last year, but when they are special needs, they can come back for up until 22. So this week is actually, he's going to be his last week of school. And then next year or this fall, I'm looking for some other programs for him to get into that focus on training kids with special needs, especially autism, about how to work and get job trainings and things of that nature, and more importantly, different life skills. He's already got a lot of life skills. Like, he's been washing his own clothes for like the last 5 years. And he just took a cooking class for the first time a couple of months ago, and so, like I said, I am so proud of the development of my son and just where he is, and more importantly, where he's going to go. He's going to be all right. I jokingly tell my mom, I said, we're just two bachelors over here living a life until he's ready to move out. But I'm not going to be kicking him out anytime soon.
So you take on a new title, because oftentimes we give men priest, protector, provider, but you're now also promoter. It's like, come on, son, you got this. Come on, son, you can do that. How important is it? Because I know disciplinarian has always been the role of the father, but oftentimes helping children find their bent, their path, their place in life. How do you help promote him and push him to, I'm gonna use another P, propel him to understand who he is, what his, I won't call them limitations, because kids with autism are super bright and I mean, oh my God, they're brilliant. And so how do you guide him toward what makes him happy and brings him joy?
First of all, and this goes for all parents, whether or not your child has special needs or not, but paying attention to what they are interested in, what they like, what they love. And sometimes as parents, we have our own kind of direction of what we want our kids to go into, as opposed to paying attention to what they're really good at. And so for me, it's more important for me to pour into where the direction and the interest, or even helping him define what that is. Because, he's just 19, he just turned 19 a couple of months ago. And so, as I tell parents, all parents, at 19, you didn't have it all figured out. So why would you expect for your child at 19 to have it all figured out, special needs or not? So that's kind of the blueprint that I take. Is he's very, very, sometimes he's very communicative. Sometimes, kids with autism don't have a filter. And so what I had to, as I got accustomed to this new version of him, when he expresses things to me, I make it a point not to, in that moment, to say or do anything. I just let him have at it, because he's expressing how he feels. Now, he might say something in that moment that might, rub me the wrong way, but guess what? That's his right as a human being to do that. And so I had to learn to just let him have that freedom of movement and freedom of expression, so that I can show up for him the way that I need to, and not the way that I want to. So I think that's been the biggest thing, because his interests have changed, and now so we're just trying to fine tune what that next thing that he's interested in, that he can actually make some money in.
Oh yeah, because now he's at wage earning age. And so you want to, move him toward that direction of, independence and self-sufficiency and all of those, qualities that people seem to find necessary to live this life. When we come back after the break, we want to dive in a little bit more to what kind of village does it take as a single father to raise a child. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Welcome back, everyone. And I hope that you are taking notes. I'm sure that we've thrown you off center, but you are going to get back to being balanced, because sometimes being a single father and co-parenting, as Carlos has mentioned, requires also a village. And I want to talk to Carlos about what does that village look like and the qualities and characteristics that you see necessary, Carlos, in people that are your village, because not everybody is village minded.
That village, I think I could say this with you, because obviously we're both, that's one thing that always drew me to you and Roland as well, that you are a woman of faith. and unashamedly, right? And so am I. And I always say that God will prepare room for you. And that village for me came in a very surprising way when I first got custody of Isaiah. The first day of going to orientation, I run into a friend of mine who I've known now for over 20 years that was there with her son. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's, oh, this is where Josh is going. And at that point, we became each other's village. Because of her job, sometimes she would have to drop Josh off so that he could go to school with Isaiah. And then vice versa. Sometimes I might have to, go out of town, or a client might have an early morning interview or something. And so vice versa. So that was a pleasant surprise. Also having my baby sister has been here for years. And so having her live here, and now my other sister lives here, and then my cousins and just other friends, and then just other family friends that are kind of like his adopted grandmother or aunts and uncles that willingly chip in and say, hey, if you need me to watch Isaiah while you go off to do the Today Show, while you go off to do whatever, let me know. And we got our boy, so that is, I can't quantify that into a dollar amount or whatever, but the value of having that village for somebody that travels as much as I do. Now, granted, I made a conscious decision when I did get custody of him to send other people on my team and that I work with, and to be a little bit more resourceful and only showing up when I needed to, as opposed to at every trip. But I cannot tell you how much that village has helped me, especially from a place of, sometimes we get overwhelmed. There have been times, and I'll be transparent, where I felt overwhelmed and wondered whether or not I was even doing a good enough job with him. Because for every career opportunity that might be great for my client or even my firm, that was taking me away from my son, especially if it's something where he got like an award ceremony or something, a field trip. Sometimes I would feel some sort of way, but I prayed about it, and I've had various different people to share their insight on this, and that helped me to become more appreciative of that village, and to not beat myself up so much whenever I do have to go out of town or out of state and leave them. So
that support comes in two ways. So you have support that you need with Isaiah when you travel, and then there's support that you need in order to be able to keep being a good father. How do you balance those two? Because you did just talk about, sometimes it makes you feel a certain way. And I think that parents do feel guilty when they have to make those kind of hard choices. Like, you asked for this, and for people that will throw that in your face, well, you asked for your son to come, so just deal with it. You have people who are not as village minded as you have people say, yeah, you make the right decision, because a boy, as you said earlier, does need his father. How do you balance now, not only making those decisions, but emotionally and internally? How do you also help Isaiah and yourself say, it's okay when I'm away?
Oh man, one of my former clients and still a good friend of mine is a mental health professional, and spending time on the road with her, and sometimes being in the audience with certain things would certain topics would come up, and then just even us being in our own time, and she would ask about Isaiah and ask the thing, and in a roundabout way, she was she might not even know, but was kind of counseling me, pouring into me, giving me food for thought on how I can navigate. And so, and that came at a very critical and important time. And so, and then having mentors and friends people that I look up to, that I respect, not only as professionals, but I respect them because of who they are personally. And so some of them have been able to give me some great advice.
Yeah, that's a great segue, Carlos, because I was going to ask you, what is the type of character that you look for in a person to be around your son and to be around you?
Oh man, I think especially as it relates to dating, I've had some very interesting engaged interactions with women over the years because I was very transparent. Hey, that I'm a single parent and I'm raising my son, but I was also transparent is that you're not going to get a chance to meet him immediately, not until we figure out what we're doing. And vice versa. I would always say, I don't even really want to meet your children either until we figure out what we're doing. And because I don't want to unintentionally set the wrong impression to my son that, it's just, a revolving door around here. We just have no. That's not that I have it like that anyway, but I wouldn't want to unintentionally send a message to him that it's okay to have all of these different moving women coming in and out. And the same thing, I wouldn't want to unintentionally set that example to the women that I date or, trying to get to know. I wouldn't want them to feel that way. So it takes, once I see that I can, that we're in a good space, and you'll know when you know. I tell people you'll know when you know. It might be 2 weeks, might be 2 months, but you'll know. That's when you can say, hey, you know what? We're going to the carnival this weekend. Hey, I'm taking my son. You want to bring your son and daughter? But it has to be what I call conducive and organic situations so that it doesn't feel forced, because you don't want to force yourself on to a woman and her children and vice versa. I don't want to force my son onto a woman if she isn't ready at that space and that time to do that. Because I've had some women to tell me that they were attracted, but when I told them that I was a single father and raised my son, and I even said that he had autism, they were like, hey, I appreciate your transparency, but I think that might be a little bit much for me to do. And I wasn't upset in any way, shape, form, or fashion, because I'd rather deal with someone that is honest and transparent than for me to let you into my circle and then you feel some sort of way about my son or mistreat my son. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's all, you'll know when it's that time.
You bring up a valid point, Carlos, because oftentimes you do get to that area of it becomes too much, for people, and they always don't know how to engage and how to get involved, and they may say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and then the kids are upset. And that finding that balance in communication and relationships, it doesn't always pan out or work out. And I'm asking this question because when you do let a person in, and we're talking about, for our audience, single parenting from the fatherhood perspective of being a single father, how do you help, does Isaiah need help when a person is no longer in the space? How do you communicate to him the how or the why they're no longer there? Because sometimes children get emotionally attached to the people we bring into their lives.
I think it's important that you pay attention to your kids. Kids will tell you if if so and so is said something or did something to them, but when you break up with that person and you brought them into quote unquote your circle, there is a conversation that needs to be had. And I went through that. Ironically, when I first got custody of Isaiah, the unfortunate part is I literally had just broken up with my long-term girlfriend. So that was the only person that Isaiah knew. So for him, when he would ask about that person, I had to let him know that, hey, we're no longer in a relationship dating, or that's no longer my girlfriend. But it's okay for you to still have a good relationship with her, because occasionally she would check up on him on his birthday, Christmas, or just sometimes whatever. But it can be a challenging part, that breakup, and managing that, because the kids get attached. And so, and then the other person gets attached. But it's all about how you handle it and just being transparent. And I think for me, and especially with Isaiah, he's such a sweetheart that he just says, "Okay, Dad." And that's his favorite. He's like, "Okay, Dad." And then when he tells me that gives me the reassurance that, okay, I guess that's his way of saying that he's cool with whatever plan that I have.
And when we come back after the break, we'll talk about what is next for fathers and fatherhood and single parenting. You know what, guys? It's on trend. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Welcome back, everyone. And as you can tell, we're learning a lot today of what single fatherhood looks like, how to navigate it, how to approach it, and who should be along this journey with us. Now, I say that single fatherhood is on trend for a lot of reasons. We've been through COVID. Many fathers became widows during that time period. People are divorcing at alarming rates. Others moms are passing away due to cervical cancer and breast cancer. They're just things that are unavoidable. So we want to prepare men in the event that they become single fathers. So Carlos, how do men get ready for the unexpected? It was something that you asked for and it was invited and you went forth with it. But there are going to be men, whether it starts today, tomorrow, or going forward, that they will find themselves raising children alone. Let's talk about tips that we can give them to help them prepare and get ready for that day.
First of all, there's no preparation for becoming a single parent, single father or mother. There's no. But I can say that the different things tips that I have for single men. One, pay attention to your children's interests. Whatever they're into, I think it's imperative that you invest your time and resources into that, because they can be very life-saving. Second of all, develop that village, because as a single father, especially if you're still working, you're going to miss some stuff. So you got to have a village of people in place that whenever you do have to leave or you can't be somewhere, that village can show up. And then the other thing is, and this is something that you got to develop a spirit of patience. Sometimes as parents, just as adults, period, especially as parents, we want everything to happen right then and there in the next 5 minutes, the next 5 weeks, or whatever it is. And that's just not how parenting really works. Every day is a learning curve. Every day is a new experience. And so you have to have the patience to understand that it's the long game. And it's just like any other experience that you've gone through. You didn't know how to do something, but you learned along the way. You might have had a mentor, you might have had somebody that you look up to, and take in advice from positive sources. And I say that because sometimes we take advice from people who are not qualified to give us advice because they're coming from a negative standpoint or unrealistic standpoint. So be mindful of who you take parental advice from, because if they're not a positive, loving parent, then they probably shouldn't be giving you parenting advice on how to be and show up for your child. Take that as it may. And then last but not least, or probably the first thing, is you gotta have faith. You gotta have faith. Take it to God. And there's a parable, lean not into my own understanding. That is what parenting is. A lot of it is not to thine own understanding, but God always makes a way or orchestrates for that person to come into my life or Isaiah's life at the right time. And I just believe that is that's just paramount. So, but those are my things.
I think that your top 5 are incredible because those top 5 relate to parents from all walks of life, whether you are in a divorce situation, whether you are a parent who's been incarcerated and coming back into the family, whether you've been away in the military. It doesn't really matter, as you have stated, because there's no blueprint, for being a parent. As you said, you learn as you go, but you learn with intention. How much? Okay, so I'm going to ask this question because I get this all the time. I didn't birth any kids, but I got some great nieces and nephews that I love like they're my own children. You said it takes patience, and you've mentioned before that it takes sacrifice. How do you help selfish people make room to be a single parent? Because oftentimes I just don't want to do it. I don't feel like it. I'm not up for the challenge. We get a whole bunch of excuses. And then that child ends up being left out or, going to some place that they don't, want to live, or being put in the foster system. Is there a way to help people say that at least they want to give it a try?
To be perfectly honest, some people just don't have paternal or maternal instincts. And I have people that I know, some of you in our own family that have been unashamed about, hey, I just don't have any maternal instincts. That's why I don't have any children. That's why I don't date men to have any children. It's like, oh wow, okay. And then on the flip side, I know men that do not have the desire to be a parent or even a step parent. So again, they also don't date women that have children or what have you. But if you're dealing in a situation where the toothpaste is already out, already out the tub, as my granddad would say, where you are now a parent, whether you want to be one or not, my prayers are with them, men or women. My prayers are with them that they, at some point, get to a point where they want to become a part of their child's life. Because that's, some people just do not want to. But I also say that you should have, if you knew that you didn't want to be a father or a mother, then you should have took the necessary precaution to not put you in that position. But that's neither here nor there. And people, things happen. We're all adults. And so, but yeah, to answer your question, I literally don't know if there is anything that you can do to make someone who does not want to be a father all of a sudden step up to the plate, and vice versa. If it's a mother, if she doesn't desire to be ongoing, I've heard, and you've probably heard it too, the horror stories of women leaving their children on the doorsteps of churches, neighbors, sometimes parents or whatever, and with a note saying that they don't want to be, they don't feel like they can be a parent. You know, and my prayers are with them. I'm not going to judge them. To be perfectly honest, my prayers are with them, because that has to be a very emotional and mentally taxing situation to go through, to have birthed this child or to have played a part in planted the seed for a child to be here, only to realize that you just don't have what it takes to be in that child's life. That has to be, I don't know how that feels like, because I know for my son, I couldn't see myself with not being in his life. But, you know, for those who have that feeling, my prayers are with them. That's between them and God.
Right. So there's the opposite side to that. Is there a time when it's ever too late? Because some people do have that wake up call and they want to have a relationship with their child. And for whatever reason, you know, it's too late. Why are you trying to come back now? You know, they get all the sass and the this and the that. Should that door always be left open, or is there a point for that door to close?
To be honest, it depends on, of all things, the child. It depends on that child's mindset, and hopefully the mother hasn't planted such negative views of the father. But I'm gonna say this: never too late.
I like that. And we're going to end on that. I do. I like that. When we come back after the break, I'll give my reflection.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Welcome back, everyone. And as you can tell, this conversation today on what it means to be a single father today is filled with joy, filled with laughter. It's filled with decision making. It's filled with making compromise in order to be able to give the child or a child or children a pathway to growth and success. I want to thank Carlos Scott for being with us today and sharing his story and his journey on what it means to be a single father. I hope that today you have learned something that you can put in your balanced living toolkit to guide you on your journey to being the best version of your parenthood self.